Hello, and welcome to the Cancer Journey podcast. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Sherry Ann.
So let's start with our PESH check-in. I'm going to go first.
Good.
Okay, so physically, I am an 8. Emotionally, I am an 8.25. Spiritually, an 8.5. And my hope is also an 8.5. And my word is movement.
Physically, I am 8.7. Emotionally, 8.75. Spirit, 9. Hope, 9.2. And my word is planning.
Mm.
I'm in that realm of think, creating strategies.
Right. And putting things together. I feel
Yes.
that energy a lot recently also, so I'm with you there. So today we wanted to talk about cancer and how you look and your appearance and how that's affected. Obviously, when many people go through cancer, sometimes that signifier is, they have the bald head. And so, if you look in like images or any sort of advertisements or something like that, that kind of tends to be the calling card. But there's so much more that goes into that, and the change of the appearance of the person who, is going through that treatment. And a lot comes up around it. So we wanted to like give it its space and talk about that today.
Yeah. I mean, one of the first things that I thought of, and I hear it all the time, is, am I going to lose my hair? I mean, when you're talking about treatment, it's like that is such a consideration.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to just kind of step back and think about, so what is it about hair? And I'm talking
Sure.
about hair on our head, but it's also eyebrows, underarms. I mean, just all our hair, because it's not like it's situational or positional. It's like, oh, I'll just lose the hair on my
Right.
head. It's
So I
like
don't think
all
anyone's
of
mad
it.
about losing their armpit hair.
No, I have to agree, because it was like, oh, good, I don't have to shave my underarms
No, you win some, you
for a
lose some.
while.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so hard, especially, as women too. We really are a little more attached to our appearance, and just culturally, women care a lot more about how they look on the outside. And, there's a lot of products and services marketed specifically for that. And I personally like to think of it as a way of taking care of ourselves rather than a vanity thing. But that is a piece of it, because we want to feel, everyone, man or woman, should be able to feel good about how they look and how and it really does influence how you feel. So I like want to already take that one off the table, like the judgment of like how I look. Like I want to take that off the table and just know and talk about freely that it's really hard that for your appearance to change so drastically, and without choice, that you get to be affected and upset about it.
Yes, yes. I mean, you're saying a lot, and it is probably the major um, physical change that people can see. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why they have these cold cap treatments while you go through chemotherapy to try to maintain the hair. And what's really fascinating to me is how wrapped up, not with judgment, because I'm right there with our identity and our hair.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
It's
also
like,
just also want to throw in, I know we're focusing on hair in this moment, but also I know a lot of women who go through breast cancer, and, they have to get surgery and they lose one breast or both breasts, and that can be a really big thing as a woman going through that as well. So I also just wanted that to be spoken, but and to know that we're going to acknowledge that too, but focusing on hair. Yes, sorry to cut you
right.
off.
I, no, it's hair is here, and
Mm-hmm.
like you said, we have products out there to take care of it. We go to hairdressers. I mean, I mean, you and I have stark contrast. I have really short hair. You have really long hair, and I know you as
Mm-hmm.
Alicia with long hair, like
Mm-hmm.
forever. And
Yeah.
I know me, if you go back to probably the last 20 years, it's been me with short hair. And prior to this, I had long hair. And what was really fascinating for me, first off, just some historical stuff. I had alopecia before I had cancer, which meant I was just losing my hair. And we kind of figured out that that was really stress related, but I lost about 75% of my hair. And so I chose hats. I didn't even think about wigs. So hats were my uh, camouflage. And people would kind of whisper behind my back. I found out this later. It was like, is she okay? Is she going through treatment? So you were talking about that identifier of you people who lose their hair, and primarily women, not so much men, because there's the premature baldness or just baldness in men. That's so much more acceptable. But you see a woman that's balding or bald,
Hmm.
and you go, what's up? And you
Hmm.
attribute it to some kind of medical condition. So
Exactly.
hats. But then when I did get diagnosed with cancer and I did do chemotherapy and my hair fell out, and that's traumatic, and we could talk about that too. Wigs were my thing. And I think
Hmm.
I had so many wigs throughout the five different journeys of cancer. But there is this identity of like, I'm me with hair, and how
Hmm.
do I not have hair? Like, how do I be with not having hair?
Hmm. Yeah. And I think it's exactly that trauma that you were just saying of like the portion of time when you're starting to lose your hair, you're realizing and noticing, that that's falling out in clumps sometimes, and making that decision to either shave your head or wait till it falls out, or whatever in between. It's a really hard choice, and it's a really really vulnerable space because um especially as women, right? And I mean, I know I've kind of always had super long hair, but if I were in that position and my hair was falling out, it would be a really really hard space to be in, and to know that, like, almost my own personal way of seeing myself is going to completely change. Um, and just the, like, outward appearance, how I look. I mean, especially these days with social media and just like the ease of having a camera for like photos and videos, and just that kind of on display, constant capturing of those moments can make people even more sensitive to the way that their appearance is changing.
I love that you use the word sensitive. What came up for me was vulnerable. It's like,
Hmm.
wow, people are going to see a part of me that I'm not necessarily wanting to show. If I
Hmm.
just go, let the bald be bald. And so there's a lot of vulnerability that is
Hmm.
required for you to just show up bald. And
Yeah,
yet I've got
yeah.
to say, hmm, it is freeing. So
Hmm.
if I can give kind of a counter narrative, it's like it is freeing. While I had, alopecia and series of hats, I still had hats too while I was going through cancer treatment. But the wigs were kind of camouflage protection
Hmm.
from that vulnerability of, yeah, I'm going through something. And I think one of the things that um, a patient needs to get through or deal with is that kind of, when someone sees you and you're not camouflaging yourself, they do that, oh, look, like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm
yeah.
so, that it's interpreted as kind of pity.
Yeah, I think that look that people give, the like, oh, um, the like tilt of the head, the kind of like
Uh-huh.
scrunched eyebrows, and it's like, oh my god, don't look at me like that. I'm a full person still, and um, I, to whatever degree people feel comfortable with themselves, even before any like sort of big um appearance or outward change. I think that once that change happens, especially when it's not your choice or under your control necessarily, um there's like a bruising that happens, and this,
Hmm.
like, it's really, it seems really impossible to just go from okay this to now like bald without having some sort of like processing space and needing time to really like land in there. I actually I've been rewatching Sex in the City, and
All right.
there's that part of it where Samantha gets cancer and she decides to shave her head, and it is a
Yeah.
very personal decision. And I'm just like flashing on someone who, you know, appears as confident as she does, um, and how she handles that appearance, because appearance is such a big thing on that show in general too. That of course it's a TV show and I understand that, but it does play with the complexities of like how that change feels, and you know how how you perceive other people are going to now view you, and even just embracing maybe the fun and wearing like some crazy wigs or something like that too.
Right. Well, and you feel naked. I mean, we're
Mhm.
talking about the hair on our head, but at the same time, and we said this earlier, it's all the hair. So eyebrows,
Mhm.
and in all truthfulness, I draw mine in every day, and I feel naked without my eyebrows. It's like
Mhm.
I need, well, other than my glasses that frame my eyes, I need my eyebrows. And so it is this nakedness. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
using it literally and metaphorically, that you're presenting to the world, that it's almost like I'm not okay. There's something
Mhm.
wrong with me, and I've here's this outward appearance of I there's something going on. I lost my hair. What is that? We look like aliens, because there's like no definition, right? It's
Right.
just like whatever we perceive aliens, that the whole
Right.
cinematic portrayal, it's like nothing. And
Yeah.
so when it's that nothingness, it's like, who am I?
Yes. Yeah. And it feels like a blank slate. And I think that, gosh, like I want to just like go over all the things that come up for people, right? Even though I think sometimes people who are going through those experiences, maybe they try to suppress that narrative for themselves and they don't want to say it out loud, right? Like, I don't feel like me anymore, or I hope I have a good shaped head for being bald, or like, how will I feel like me again? How can I
Right.
look at myself in the mirror? You know, um, it's really it can be a really difficult space to be in, and I think women kind of are lucky to have all those resources too. Again, I think you're absolutely right that men being bald is a little more normal, or like even children who are growing up with other kids who, you know, are going through treatment and they're still trying to have a normal childhood. I think we're really lucky that there are a lot of resources to kind of help us, like, you know, wear wigs, wear a hat, you know, there's makeup, but also there's like conversation that needs to be had around it. It's not just the
Exactly.
masking of it. um it's more than just that outward appearance, because your internal feelings are going to also be impacted about how you feel about how you present yourself.
Right. And societally, yeah, societally, we want to fit in, we want to belong, and then all of a sudden we're different. And I'm a big advocate of people embracing their differences, but this is kind of a imposed difference. It's temporary, but it's stark. I
Hmm.
mean, you were talking about, your hair falls out in clumps, or you shave. I shaved my head because it was coming out in clumps, and it was, I said it earlier, traumatic. It's like when you get up from sleeping and you see your pillow covered with hair. It's that scary tingle that goes down your
Hmm.
spine of something's not okay. And
Yeah.
it is that confrontation of it's changing, something's happening. How do I deal with this? How do other people do? I mean, I think that's why one of the first reactions is, am I going to lose my hair? Because it's all about external change
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
myself and for everybody else. And I just want to fit in. and
Yeah,
not fit in to be like a drone or a sheep. I just
right.
want to be accepted. I think that's it. And feeling different and apart almost feels like it hurts our soul.
It's like when you said that we feel like aliens if we're bald, you know? Like we think that we're so other, and then people give you that pity look. You're like, oh, I just don't want that. And it's interesting to me because I hear a lot of people who've, gone through cancer. If they're either survivors or thrivers, and they'd say like, "Oh, I used to be this, I used to be that," and it's
Right.
interesting how separate people can feel from who they were, especially because of that physical change, because of that external appearance changing. It's almost like they don't feel like themselves anymore. And I think that that can be so hard to vocalize because we don't want to be vain. We don't want to say like, "Oh, it's all about how I look and that's what I care about." But you still get to care about that. And it's so important to be able to have a place to put that frustration because it's
Yes.
real.
Yes. And strangely, for myself and also many cancer women that I've worked with would say, I used to have long hair. I used to have really curly hair. I used to, there's this pride in how we looked. And so all of a sudden that's taken away. Not
Hmm.
that you look, you don't look like yourself. I mean, well, the truth is, you don't feel like yourself, and then you lose your hair, you don't look like yourself. So it's
Hmm.
this, I've lost something. So
Hmm.
the conversation is more, I hope, about, you know, exactly how do you feel? And
Hmm.
do you feel like you've lost part of yourself? And let's have that conversation because who are you really? And I think that we keep coming back to that same question, but it's so confrontational that we tend to just focus on the hair or the aesthetic
Hmm.
versus what's really going on inside.
And it's also a lot easier to change what's on the outside than to recognize what's on the inside, right? Because it's external, it seems like more real to people because it's tangible. And so sometimes, especially if people don't know how to tune into what's inside, it feels almost impossible. And I think that that is we talk about finding purpose a lot, and I think that one of the things that that purpose gives you is it gives you a grounding in yourself that isn't as external, and it does help you as you're navigating your cancer journey and as you're um maybe losing your hair and things like that. Like you can during that same time, like our hope is to get people more centered with who they are internally. So no matter what changes on the inside, even if they are attached to that, they can vocalize it, they can express it, and they can make a choice and feel more at home in their own body and their own soul rather than feel defined by anything that we like put on ourselves. I mean, don't get me wrong. I also draw on my eyebrows every day and like I like my long hair too. I think if I were to lose my hair, I would definitely wear a wig. I'm fully in support of that. Do things that make you feel good for sure, but that's just a band-aid, really. That's not
Right.
solving the problem. It is covering it up and it is something that will maybe help you feel more whole and feel more at home with yourself. But truly, like, you'll never fully feel at home in yourself until you know what's in here and what you really need and what you really want and what you really care about.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Here's a fun story that gives an alternative view. I was a bridesmaid in a wedding while I was going through treatment. And so I had, again, many wigs. I had a long wig, long, because I wanted to feel my long hair again. I had a blonde wig with big wavy curls, which was super fun. Um, And so I was at this wedding and I started off with my long light black hair wig and did the whole wedding through that and that was fine. But then I thought it would be fun to change. So I changed mid party and I was in the blonde wig. Well, after that I was so hot. So I decided just not to wear anything and so I was bald. And at the end of the evening somebody came up to me and said, I know you. And I'm like, okay. And then they said, I thought you were three different people. And that when you didn't have a wig at all, that you were a monk and you were going to officiate. So, and I'm
Oh.
like, oh my goodness. And it's really interesting having that experience to see the perception of people based on looks
Hmm.
and the
Yeah.
assumptions that they make. Like I thought it was
Yeah.
kind of I got a kick out of the fact that they thought that I was gonna be I was a monk. I didn't change my clothes. I only changed my hair, my wig.
Right.
So
Right.
it's interesting what people see and what they make up. So that was a fun
Yeah.
story.
But I also love that you were so solid in yourself, right? Like you can absolutely have what you want. You're like, I want long hair. I'm gonna have long hair today. And I want to be fun and just switch up my hair literally mid so wedding
Party.
celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah, mid party and go blonde, but now I'm hot, so I'm gonna take it off and it doesn't matter because at the end of the day for you, it was just fun. And it's like I get to still have all of those and I get to make that choice for myself and have that power. So even when someone comes in saying like, I thought you were a monk, um, you get to be like, okay, and I'm not, and that's yours. That's yours to have, random stranger who thinks I'm a monk, because I still got to enjoy every single part of this and make that choice for myself of how I wanted to show up. Knowing that there would be judgment, I think that that's part of going through a diagnosis, and we are our own harshest critics. So like anything I'm sure you tell yourself, you can almost expect some sort of version of that maybe coming from someone else. So there is kind of that like, okay, people may judge me, they probably will judge me, and I get to make the choice that even if those things come up, I'm still me. I'm still
Right.
me regardless of my hair. I'm still me regardless of if I have eyebrows right now, or I'm still me even, if I don't have breasts right now, or I still get to be fully me. And there's so much more that defines me than what's outside, but I get to make the choice of what the appearance is.
Right. And thank goodness I was able to process that beforehand.
Hmm.
That
Yes.
I mean, I can't remember what number cancer it was, but I had experience before. But I also got to talk to my coach, my
Hmm.
coaches, my community that I was in, that it was safe, and I could talk about this stuff so that I could process it versus just trying to, fix
Right.
and hide. It's like, what's real? I think that's
Yeah.
really the conversation of what's real and who am I to lean into in all these crazy hard times. Because that could have been, really embarrassing. Like maybe my wig fell off one day. I'm sure that it did because they don't always stay on. But it's
Hmm.
like, oh no, no, I'm afraid of out there instead
Hmm.
of I'm okay here. So whatever happens out there, I'm still okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so important.
And I think
I
we
think we
need to have
should.
the conversation more,
Yes.
as in a larger forum where people can be angry and sad and silly and crazy all at the
Hmm.
same time.
And get to say the wild things like, I don't feel sexy anymore, no one's gonna like fall in love with me or whatever it is, and like say it and let it out and let it feel real, but also let it feel like silly and open so that you can let it go instead of just internalizing it and having that dialogue repeat itself in your brain that it affects you in other ways too. Like
Yes.
say the wild things and say like, I actually love being bald, or whatever it really is, because I mean, you don't have to everything that you say, especially to someone who's safe, isn't necessarily always held as like, and that's exactly where they are and that's like what they're rooted in. It's like, no, sometimes you just need to like say it and let it go. And
Yes.
we're in such a society where it's like, oh, don't be vain but also look naturally beautiful all the time, and
Yep.
the pressure of it is so constant. So my takeaway is that the constant pressure of needing to look a certain way can be a huge burden to hold as you're going through treatment or, any sort of illness or any sort of like external change. It can be really, really hard to find balance in yourself and what you want, but also, those societal pressures that like they are around us. And my word is embrace.
My takeaway is a phrase that we use a lot, and it's there's magic in the telling. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, particularly this topic, I think it needs to be said out loud how we're feeling because it's such I'm going to use the word stigma, but that's not the right word. But
Mm-hmm.
it is this, if somebody's bald and it seems like it's not, premature balding, but just, and especially women, it's like, the assumptions and just being able to say it out loud, like you said, have a forum, have conversations so that you can find your way back home to you where it
Mm-hmm.
matters. And my word is gratitude. Like, I'm really grateful to have this conversation. I'm really grateful to have this podcast to share thoughts and feelings that are inside and to start the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for tuning in with us again. We'll be back next week with new episodes.
Have a lovely rest of your day. Bye for now.